Hi, everybody. Welcome to this session. Day one, mid-afternoon, surrounded with friends and talking business. We should be somewhere else, but yeah, that's what we're meant to do. Hi, Gaurav. Hi, Manish. Hi, Samar. Hi, Samir. How are you guys? All well?
All well, Uday.
All well,
Hope
Uday.
same for you.
Yeah. All is well. All is well. Oh, hi, Shogata. I can see you. There you are.
Hi Uday, I just can't start my video. It seems that the moderator, the host has
No,
stopped it.
you're a well-known personality, so. So good. So I'm going to do this difficult thing of talking business with friends, but yeah, let's get on with it. Thank you, Anil and Indian Television, for putting us all together and being able to meet each other again. The topic is interesting. I think we just need to lay down what all of you are doing on the content side. Obviously, the pandemic has brought in lots of new users, but what are your plans on offering new content to these users? How do you plan to retain these users? Has there been a bit of a change in your content strategy, in your production strategy? I'm going to start off with Gaurav and then Manish and maybe Saugata, and then we can get on to our friends from the production side. Both Samar and Samir can take on after that. So Gaurav, you want to give it a shot? How's been the pandemic, the business during the pandemic? It's been a year and a half. And how are you re-looking at your content strategy, and what are you looking to acquire new users and retain your existing lot?
So, candidly, the pandemic obviously caught us unawares, and the consumption boom that it drove was something that we were candidly unprepared for, and that's unusual in an industry that's continuously growing at the rate that we normally do. To admit that we were unprepared for this level of growth is, I guess, just being candid. The reality is that the appetite of consumers grew so rapidly that I don't think that we had quite the levels of content in place to try and fulfill that demand. And essentially, what I think would have been an 18-month journey just transpired in the course of 3 months, when television production was off the air. There was obviously no theatricals happening. There was really nothing else going on. And we got a lot of people that would have taken a little longer to begin their OTT journeys, all joining us. And so that sort of, in and of itself, just operations during the pandemic themselves were fairly challenging. And so it took us a little while to build cadence around this new reality of, having everybody and, wanting to be part of OTT. And it was our tipping point moment. Perhaps second only to the cheap data, which I think was the first tipping point moment for streaming services. And so what that's meant for us is that, hopefully some of you guys know that we're attempting a digital first at, Viacom 18, where we put our marquee property on digital only. And I don't think that's been quite attempted before. And I don't know that we would have had the courage to do it if we hadn't seen this kind of user momentum. The fact that now we genuinely believe that everybody is just a mouse click away from joining an OTT service, I don't think we would have put a storied property like Big Boss on digital alone. But 2 weeks from now, we're taking the plunge. We'll see where we go. But I think that's given us a lot more courage to take bolder bets in terms of the nature of content we're putting out. I think at least what I was seeing early on was the initial froth in the market, certainly around crime shows and very, very well-architected heroes' journeys. But I think there was a sameness to the stuff that we were putting out there also, and it was reliable. It would work. I think now we're looking to explore and push the boundaries significantly on content, because there is no debate about the audience being there. They're there. It's for us to step through the door. So that's really the take for us. That's how things have shifted in our part of the world.
Interesting. So what I take from there is you're ready to take big bets. You're ready to look at now Big Boss being on digital. Obviously, that's a brave, huge move. Manish, you want to add to that? Also done some very brave stuff recently. Radhe has been one of them. Friends has been an interesting one. You want to walk us through some interesting stuff and how this whole bravery of the OTT ecosystem is coming through. Tell us more.
Yep. I think Uday and everyone around, we are evolving with the consumer. So what pandemic did was it gave a shot in the arm to the industry by virtue of holding people back to their households. Now you're at home, you don't have much to do, and you want to get entertained. Your options of going to a mall, your options of going to a cinema are just gone. And by virtue of that, you're kind of spending more time on your digital devices, you're consuming more data, and you're looking for entertainment at home. So what happened in the process was both consumers' appetite to spend, uh, as well as our appetite to cater to that demand which came our way, kind of increased significantly. And as a result, you're seeing that so much of spike on investments on OTT. And like Gaurav said, that there are many new players who came in like overnight, and the industry expanded. To me, it's consumer behaviors changed. More and more people are online, more and more people are open to pay for content online. Now for us as service providers, the challenge is how do we ensure that we are able to cater to the demand in a way that caters to all taste clusters. So if let's say someone wants a thriller, I should have a great thriller available for him or her. Someone wants a great family drama, I should have that available. And then if someone wants edgy or any kind of a content, that's what research also tells us, that they look at OTT as a very colloquial word, as a buffet. And it's a function of my mood at that point in time, that, hey, if I'm doing something, I want to watch a thriller with my friends, I should have it available at the fingertips. Or if I want to watch a romantic movie with my wife, I should have it available. So as service providers, it became important for us to cater to all those taste clusters and all the demand types that came our way. Now, what happened in the process was there was obviously scarcity of the right content because people were not able to shoot, and shoots were also stalled, and there was various struggles at various levels, and delays were happening. But because there was demand, all of us somewhere took big bets. Like you rightly mentioned, for us, winning the market by catering to the customer with the right content is super important. For the first time ever in the country, or in fact in the world, we decided to bring a big blockbuster like Radhe on TVOD. TVOD as a model, I think a lot of us were skeptical about, hey, whether Indians would pay for one rental, whether they would kind of be willing to give that money for that only one rental or one view. So I think we all learned in the process. What we did was we also created a bundle with a regular subscription and TVOD. And we were pleasantly surprised. I think the market has evolved. The Indian consumers right there. 30% of our Radhe consumption was on TVOD, which was like amazing and a learning for all of us. Also gave us a lot of confidence that, hey, by virtue of the fact that Bollywood has evolved over the years and Indians are movie buffs, they know the punch, how to deliver it and when to deliver it. And somewhere in the process, we kind of forcefully moved our content strategy to movies, and as well as going after pockets like regional content layers. So I think it's been a good journey. We are pleasantly surprised by the way the consumers have rewarded us, and we are more in a way doubling down, all hands in, going after acquiring that user and getting them the right content. And yeah, it'll be exciting next few years for all of us, and we'll learn in the process how the consumer evolves and how we evolve.
Thanks, Manish. That was the second thing that Salman Khan did. So, there was the Big Boss conversation, and now there is the Radhe conversation. So, yeah, now let's get to Shagata. And, in the pandemic, or just around the pandemic, they hit the ball out of the court with scam, and, obviously changed the fortunes and the way people looked at content on OTT. So we have the person himself. You want to talk more about it, and what's happened after that? What are you doing about content now in pandemic? Are you looking at bigger bets? Are you looking at what Manish calls a buffet where you will have lots of other stuff, or how do you want to go about it? How do you plan to go about it, Shobita?
Hey, thanks. So it's been a huge learning curve for everybody. I think over the last year and a half. Everything, the adoption rates. We kind of thought that SVOD is not going to be that easy. Getting that wallet out and paying for content it's more an EVOD market, but all of that changed. I think SVOD is here to stay. The Indian consumer is out there looking for great content, and they're willing to pay, and that's been the biggest learning, right? I think from where we started out of having about 500,000 subscribers on June 18th to today, we are above 6 million subscribers. It's been an absolutely fabulous journey. I think it has also been sort of expedited by the pandemic in terms where the adoption has become much faster. Yes, there have been some very, very good shows which dropped, and Scam definitely sort of walked away with all the glory, and it helped a lot of people sampling us. And we've managed to sort of keep that momentum going by dropping shows every month, in spite of a very, very difficult scenario of production for us. It's not been easy. It's not just us. I think everybody has been. They've tried to manage through the pandemic through their own sort of distribution and sort of looking at the content pipeline that they have. But the fact remains that it was very tough over the last couple of months to get the shows that you planned for and get them on time. But thankfully enough, I think what has happened in the ecosystem is also that people have also been adept in managing, using technology better, doing shows with a much tighter manpower. You are trying different sort of forms to sort of help how you can get to the completion sooner than later. I think those are things which have been sort of a learning process for all of us. I mean, we've just gone back to shoot again, right? It's been just about a couple of weeks that we've all gone back to shoot, and every conversation that I have early morning is that, is there a new diktat? How do we sort of manage to get things rolling and make them happen on time, if not sooner, right? Yes. About the platform, we've been a little choosy about the kind of content that we play out. We have been very careful about the number of shows that we put out. But what we've been trying to do is that we are, like Gaurav just said, that it's like a buffet. We do have a bouquet of shows, and every sort of genre is being is something that we are trying to cater to, whether it's a thriller, whether it's drama, whether it's a biopic. We are trying to give a little bit of everything so that when you go back onto the platform, you find the show that you're looking out for. But challenging, yes, the times were challenging. They're still very challenging in terms of the production that we're all going through. But I think what we have tried over the last few months, maybe a year, is also been a little more taking the big risks. There are some really big shows that we have taken on. I think one of the last shows that we did, called Maharani, again, was very different from something else that we did. It sort of looked at a market and a story about the real India, so to speak. And again, like Scam, it actually worked both in that market and in the very, very urbane settings as well. So at the end of the day, it seems like, if you're telling the right kind of story, the takers are everywhere.
Yeah. I must compliment you for Maharani. I sat through it non-stop. It was great viewing. I don't think I messaged you after that, but yeah, it's been an amazing experience. So great. I'll move on to Samar now. Samar, tell us How has life changed for you in the last 2 years? I know the OTT platforms are now wanting more content, but it's getting more and more difficult to make content. So, maybe someone can take it up and then someone can step in. There is a demand, but it's very difficult to meet that demand because there are 101 restrictions and challenges and limitations. So walk us through that and how are you handling it? How are you planning to sort that out and be able to give more and more to your partners in on the OTT platform side?
Thank you, Uday. Thank you. Hi, guys. I think the biggest challenge that I think with the kind of content that's going out in the last 2 years, I think the biggest challenge that I think Samir might agree with me is that it's becoming more and more difficult to find stories because there are so many stories being told that it's just becoming more and more challenging to find that one unique thing because that's I think the biggest challenge that we are facing as content creators to try and find the right story because there are so many platforms, and if you calculate even a one show per month, you're looking at a huge number of shows being made every year. So that has been a huge challenge and a learning curve over the last 2 years, is to find the stories. What are the
Is it stories or is it talent, Samar?
I think it's stories to start with. I mean, talent, yes, it is a challenge, but there is a growth of new talent because I think what the OTT world has done, and I think credit goes to people like Shogata and people like GR and people like Manish and stuff that who are willing to punt on new talent. I mean, Maharani, even though it was what do you say, show ran by Subhash Kapoor, there's Karan Sharma who's a new director, who did it. I mean, when I did Avrodh, we made it with Raj Acharya, who was not a director who had done any film, but they were willing to take a punt on him. When we did Illegal with Gaurav and Voot, I mean, we had a brand new director. So talent is not that much of a problem. I would say there is still a lot of talent out there, but I think the biggest challenge that production houses and creators are finding is to find the stories, because there is such a huge amount of stories that are going out there. And what is also happening is that with every show the bar is being raised higher, with every success the bar is being raised higher, and you're like, oh my god, it's actually like, I mean, I'm not kidding you, and Samir will laugh and I think he'll agree that it's almost like going for the Olympic gold, that every time the high jump happens, now you have to jump higher because now the competition is with the previous hit. It's not with, it's like, are yaar, wo ab itna acha show ban
Yeah, Samar, this problem is the film guys know this problem. I think the problem was that the television production house didn't know that problem.
Exactly. I mean, you were not.
The film guys always had this challenge, and they were able to.
Yeah, but Uday, the film guys, I mean, to be brutally honest, I think every show that's coming out from OTT content or from every OTT show now coming out is excellent. I don't think that the last 2 years have even seen average shows. And now Samir has gone out there and gotten Ajay Devgan to do a show. So now next the challenge will be to get a big star. And let's so it's like every day you wake up to a new challenge. So it's very, very exciting because you're pushing yourself every day to get new shows, get new ideas. But I think that has been the challenge in the last 2 years, because in the last 2 years, because of the pandemic and the fact that we were not about to shoot that much, the amount of development time that we have had, and networks have had and people have had, it's been like, you've developed so many new shows, so many new ideas, that now it's becoming very difficult to find new ideas. I think that is where we as creators, and Samir can jump in and take this forward, that's been a challenge. I mean, I'm not going to talk about the logistical challenges of the pandemic and all, because we are all aware of it. And I honestly have to
that's probably a common denominator across, logistics.
But I think the one thing that, I mean, touch wood, by the grace of God, I mean, right now, I'm right now in Srinagar while editing a show for Gaurav and doing a recce for a Shogata show, and doing a script for a Z show. So touch wood, I'm really lucky that way. But the deal is that the partners have been more than helpful. They have understood the problem. They have understood the problem that, listen, there is a pandemic. We need to have a bio bubble. We need to, make changes creatively. So I'm not going to get into the logistics of it, because that, I think the partners have been more than helpful and more than willing to, take the burden and the pain with us. So that's something that we've all begun to live with. But the challenge, Uday, has really been that every time you go back with the pitch now, the last show has come out and raised the bar. So suddenly your idea is old now, and now you have to reinvent it, and you have to, rejig it. So it's
A
exciting.
good problem to have. Samir, what do you think? Are you facing the same problem, or is it more talent and logistics?
I think let me take a contra view on Samar, but I do agree on the high jump part. I think what's happened is after you've started the jump, the platforms are raising the bar. So mid-air, you have to make changes. That's the real challenge.
That's the producer's point of view. That's the real producer's point of view. Good one, Samir.
So if you knew where you were jumping when you got off the ground, you could probably make the jump. But as they said, the bar is going higher and higher. I think where I'll agree or disagree with Samar is that I think it's the way in which we are telling stories needs to be reinvented. I think ideas will come. There'll always be a scam. There'll always be another show, a Nasur or a Criminal Justice or a Rudra. But how you tell that story in this world has become far more important. The audience is restless. They have access to far more new content. So how you tell these ideas in today's world has become the real challenge. I don't think we are short on ideas. I think there are enough ideas out there, Samar, that we'll all find to tell. It's just that how do you tell that same idea in a new and in a fresh way, which excites everybody today? I think the second problem is the mix. And I think somebody, Sagato mentioned it or Gaurav mentioned it, is this buffet. What is the right mix in the buffet? Sometimes there is a sudden overdose of crime, then there's sudden require for premium drama. So you need to keep resetting, or you need to keep looking forward 6 months from everyone's perspective. So if we are developing something today and suddenly you realize that that material has got irrelevant, you wasted 6 months on it, and now suddenly they're not looking at that kind of content. So the game has become far more dynamic today for all of us. And I completely agree, S-Pod is here to stay. I think the premiumness of the content, I'm not saying in terms of cost, but in the terms of writing and making, will definitely keep getting better and better as all of us evolve and play this game.
I'm going to now stick to Samar and Samir for a minute. I wanted to get your feel on this whole conversation on, is it films or is it shows? What's the next? Where are the consumers leaning towards? Are they looking for more shorter 3 hour, 2.5 hour, 2 hour film content, which is one sitting, or is it binge watching? What are the platforms giving you feedback from their data? What are you hearing from the market? What in terms of ideas, and picking up from what Samir said, Samar said, from not having too many ideas and the shortage of ideas, is film becoming an important thing? And is, because theaters are shut, okay, from a business point of view, is it making more sense to make films for OTT? Give us your view from a producer point of view. What do you think? Is that becoming an important part of the buffet that's out there for the consumer and easier to throw it out?
I think people go for content. They don't put that filter key, will I watch a 2 hours film? It's a subject of time, obviously. But right now, from what the market we are seeing in the market, I think the demand for series for us is far higher. We've got a lot of tentpole projects out among all these clients, and the demand for that, in fact, the demand for tentpole premium dramas is just going up every day. People are right now talking Diwali 22 on this forum. There's nobody who's looking at Christmas anymore. People are already looking at the next Diwali and the next Christmas. So that's the kind of demand we are seeing in the market. And that's the kind of changes so by the time, imagine next Diwali comes, look at the content skew that will change from now to next Diwali. Right now, there's a particular gulab jam that's the flavor of the season. By next year, we might move to rasgullas for all you know. So that demand is changing so dynamically, and among players, the demand is changing. We are seeing certain clients go high on crime. There are certain clients who suddenly need premium family dramas. So it's very interesting to see how the market is playing out in its own form.
There's an interesting view out there. One view says there's too much content coming in. Somebody on the panel just said, you know, every week or every month, there is a big show coming on every platform. So there is a view in the market which says lots of content or too much content. And then there is another view which says, give me more because my platter is still not full. And you know, my buffet still looks like a very thin buffet. How do you, what's the reality? What's the sense you are getting?
I think everyone's balancing their mix, and Samar can add into it. When people realize that, I think as Sagato or Gaurav said, the buffet is not full enough or variety is not enough, they suddenly try and cater to that mix by plugging in a show which is not in their armory. And I think that's what we are seeing right now in the market. Samar?
I think also to answer your question, I feel that the film phenomena on OTT was a result of the cinema theaters not being there. I mean, that I thought saw that complete glut of cinema of films coming onto the OTT. You know, in my experience, the last 4 or 5 years, and after having worked and done series, the conversations that happen around series don't happen around films. You know, films don't lead to those conversations that series lead to. Today, for example, when we were here and we spoke about a Radhe, or we spoke about a scam, or we speak about an Asur, you know, the conversations around series last longer. So I think even the whole idea of films, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, I mean, I think the people from the platforms would be able to answer that better. But I feel that it was a slight short-term, you know, phenomena that hit us, and now it's going to, because when cinemas do open up, they will take away a part of the audience who do want the cinema experience. So series is going to lead to conversations, people talking. Like for example, even Graham that just came out. I mean, it led to so many conversations with people, which it would have not been if it was just a film, which was made and you know it was over in 3 hours. You know, the characters are more alive and people are able to speak more about it. People are able to speak, you know, hold it longer, so as to say. So I think that the series market is going to always be stronger, in my opinion, than the film market, you know, would be. And like I said, there are people from the network who would be able to actually answer this better, probably.
Oh, I actually agree with you, Samar, completely. That at least that's the leaning that we've taken, right? As a platform, I think that it leads to better advocacy, and so we're certainly taking that track to take but it's unique because you guys are talking about, you know, whether there's enough content, and I think that comes from a lens where either you're looking at appointment-driven viewing through a broadcast mechanism, or a limited number of screens in which there is only so much content that one can actually put out at the same time. But when you move to VOD, you're essentially putting the entire a la carte menu on the buffet and say, come and now choose. So that is just something that, you know, is we're all going to have to come to terms with. It's not quite the same.
How do you decide, and this is more for Gaurav, Manish, you know, as a business head, as somebody who's running platforms, how do you decide this is enough or not? You know, because there is obviously a budget attached to it, there's a cost attached to it. How do you say, I want to do more smalls, I want to do less bigs, you know, or I want to do X films, or even if they're less conversational, or I want to do something else. How do you trade that off? And Shraddha, to step in wherever you can.
I'll jump in here. So we don't decide, it's the consumer who decides. We are there to cater to them and their fancies, and if they want to watch more movies or whether more OCs. I was listening in about the conversation on OC versus movies. I think it's about the content. Whether you make a great power-packed, punchy content like a scam or Sunflower and our platform, and kind of have a good movie to support it, people will watch it. Now, whether it's going to be today, I want to make big ones or small ones. As a platform, we want to make everything that kind of excites the consumer. And somewhere I'll relate to what Sugata was saying, the bar is raising. And it's not the platform who's raising the bar, it's the consumer who's raising the bar. And our objective is to A, acquire more and more users, and B, ensure whoever we acquire, like what we've kind of showcased to them, and engagement keeps going higher and higher. So objectively, to answer this question, obviously there are budgets. Obviously, there are aspirations to acquire more users and drive higher engagement. But what is that mix? I won't say that it's a 80-20 mix or it's a 20-80 mix. It's the right mix, which is related to the content, which the consumer is happily consuming. And I think it'll keep evolving. And some of the factors which were brought in that, hey, theaters shutting down helped bring more movies on platform. Yes, it did. It opened the appetite from producers' perspective to take it from a big theater to a small screen or a OTT, which is fine. And all of us have learned and evolved in the process. Is it here to stay? I do believe it is here to stay. Will it be all direct to digital, or will it be delayed from theatrical? I think we'll all learn in the process. But like I said, more power to the consumer, and all of us will keep catering to them based on their demand, and we'll move forward together.
If I can jump in here, I think movie making or, distributing films is not going to be the same ever again post this. I think there'll be two kinds of films. If I feel theaters are always going to be around, but I think more often than not, a lot of the scripts, which I think there are a lot many, and people have been working on it forever, which didn't find a theater or find a platform to showcase. I think a lot of these films will possibly come to the OTTs. I think that has really opened up a big market because I feel that theatrical experience possibly will get limited to a slightly more bigger spectacle movies. The more mid-list kind of films will possibly now look for a direct to digital release. And if I come back to what the discussion was on about movies versus series, I think it's also a question of competence. I think the fact is the ecosystem over the last few years have really evolved. People like Samir and Samar and lots of other producers have really supported a lot of writers to also get to learn the grammar of telling shows, long form shows. I don't think that was there even a few years back. I think we have been making films forever. We've been making films for 100 years. We know how to make a film, but to make a 8-hour long content is something that we've all been learning over the last few years. We've gotten better at it. The bar is getting raised every other day, but that also means that we still have the talent pool is only so much, right? I think as it grows, we'll have possibly much more people, who will be able to cater to that kind of content making. But right now, I think it's easier possibly to turn around a film than a series. And Samar and Samir can tell you how long it takes for a series to develop. It's more collaborative than it ever was, right? A film was a script.
Sorry to butt in. It's like a pain point between me and Samir. So we will not get into how long it takes to around.
Yeah, people get old in that process, don't they, Samar?
It's a pain point, so we will not get into that.
So my question here is, and I'll open it up. Is it that the films made for OTT haven't found their language as yet? Is it possible that we still think films are screen first and not OTT first, and there needs to be a separate language for OTT first filmmaking, and maybe the consumers haven't seen enough, or the platforms haven't experimented enough, and the producers haven't stuck their neck out enough to make something of that sort?
I think what's happened, Uday, is that what you've seen or what we've all seen in the last 15 odd months is a function of what was actually made for the big screen. We should all ask ourselves if any of these films that we've seen were actually written for OTT. And I think Sagato said it rightly that I think a lot of producers have now got the grammar of writing long format seasons or getting that kind of experience of doing long format shows much better. I think probably next year is a good judge to decide whether a 2-hour OTT film, which has been written for OTT, actually delivers what the platform required in terms of the value for money experience. And I think that's where the answer between films and TV will lie. If that same money is getting you 8-part series with lesser actors, and if the same money is getting you a 2-hour content with bigger actors, what is the ROI on that from their measurement metrics is what probably on the next Anil's content.
Yeah, next year we'll discuss that.
Answer this question.
Yeah, I think the one point that I would like to make over here, taking forward what Samir is saying, is that we also have to realize that the OTT industry is just about 5 years old. From 2017 to 2021, 22, and yes, it saw the acceleration in 2021, 22. But, like for example, I did Test Case, which was pretty much one of the first shows on Old Balaji when Old Balaji had launched at that point of time. So the real success will come in when season twos start coming, because a lot of the season ones were made without an idea whether we'll do a season two or not. Because whether the market will be able to sustain it or not, or whether this industry will continue or not. So a lot of it's still a very.
Amar, but that grammar has changed today. Before we pitch, we are asked.
Yeah. Already pitching season two, man.
No, I get it. I'm saying, Sameer, I'm saying that a lot of the season twos that we are working and maybe you are working on, were also, it was a shot in the dark at that time when we did a season one. Now the grammar has changed for sure. So I'm saying that we also have to keep in mind that it's just a 5-year-old industry where the rules are still being made. People are still trying to figure out whether we should, like, we are pitching shows and saying, let's do first 2 seasons and let's shoot them together because it's more cost effective. It's a little more simpler. So right now the rules are still being evolved and people are still evolving. And the pandemic has actually come out of the blue for the OTT industry because it's just changed people's viewing habits. So I think the rules of how to write or whether what an OTT film is or what a series is, I think we are just still evolving. That's again my perspective, that we are still learning and grappling with every success and every failure to try and figure out, like for example, a lot of people are now, a lot of content, a lot of platforms are now looking at saying that the OTT platforms are very male skewed. There are not enough women in it. We need more women on the platform. How do we do that? So it's still a very, very new industry, 5 years old, and I think rules are still being made. And
So, Samar, sorry to button, but while we are on the rules issue, let's discuss the big rule that has come at all of us. So Gaurav, Manish, tell us more about how you are handling this, self-regulation regime. How are producers adjusting to it? What kind of a process change is required or a mindset change is required? And what kind of filters are you putting into your content now when you're going in, or it's business as usual and we'll figure out when we rate it at the end. So, Gaurav, you want to take that?
Sure. So, candidly, it hasn't forced very large changes in direction. I think all of us as platforms have our own SNP teams who are anyway engaged to vet our own content. What's changed is, of course, the regulations that are in the framework are also now being sort of looked at by our own team, so that we're certainly not wanting to be out of book in terms of what is allowed and not. But I don't think that we had as much of a shift. What's changed, I think, and a lot of these things in terms of regulations and frameworks, they come to bear when implementation comes in. Nothing in the framework is particularly aberrant in that sense. And I know there was a lot of outrage, but I think that the true test of it is going to be now, because now is when a lot of content will start to come out. The pandemic certainly put the brakes on. We had a little bit of content come out. In fact, there have been a few content pieces that have been reviewed, etc. No brouhaha about it, just fixed and it's gone through. But I think that now, as the volume of content starts to come out, we'll actually get to learn what this means in terms of how much of a stricture that will sort of put on our content process. Because I think a lot of these are not about the letter of law, it's the spirit of the regulation and how that's going to be taken forward. So I'm certainly looking to see once we get to the first 10, 12 situations that arise, how those will be dealt with to actually create a precedent for the industry. So right now I'm very much in wait and watch mode. I haven't changed significantly on the content direction at this point.
Manish?
Yep, I think somewhere I agree with Gaurav, but having said it, from our perspective, the way we look at it today, there's more part of the consumer. What regulations do is they tell us that, hey, qualify the content in a certain type and then let the consumer decide. So as responsible players in the ecosystem, we've done that. And if as a user you come in and you kind of want to watch 18 plus, you have a choice to make. You want to watch 13 plus, you have a choice to make. And consumers can then kind of be more aware on the watching decisions or the viewing decisions that they're taking. So I think from that perspective, it's more part of the user. From production perspective, I do believe India was never on the other side of the spectrum. While you see a lot of international content, which is like crossing some lines, but for Indian content, we were pretty much within the limits of what has been prescribed by the government rules. And I think all of us are law-abiding citizens here and will adhere to all the guidelines. And I'm sure producers, production companies are evolving in the process, and they've taken cognizance of that. So I don't think it'll hamper creativity in any step or process for that
So,
matter.
Shravan, are you getting sandwiched between the producers and the business guys?
Well, Uday, frankly, what Gaurav just said, I think I truly, I think, I'm waiting to see if what happens if those 5-7 cases once they surface. But otherwise, I think if you were to ask, has it changed? Of course, nothing has changed in terms of the filters, the way I tell my team to pick content. None of that. I don't think that has changed at all. But
That's
yes,
good.
all of us are mindful of what we are putting out. All of us have had our S&P teams in place. Yes, we are mindful of not like Manish just said. We are all law-abiding citizens, and we want to sort of not transgress and want to do something which is out of the ordinary. But I don't think that is a limiting factor, frankly. I mean, if it makes us, I think we should not overthink this. We should be mindful of the regulations which are there. And all of us as platforms of producers are taking care of that. But would you say that this is going to be an impediment in making great content? I think that's an excuse.
Sounds good. Samar, change your life. Sorry.
There's just one thought that I want to actually call out, which I think is very beneficial, which is the fact that because we are such a diverse country, there is a significant risk of offending some constituency or the other whenever you put out some level of content. And one of the positive rub-offs of this exercise is that dissent gets centralized and doesn't result in PILs in different courts all across the country, which is just a negative for the industry. So I really quite welcome that, where it gets
absolutely. I think there's a system to the chaos in some way. But Samar, has it changed your life? Samir, has it changed your life? Have you started saying no to a lot of stories and saying no, just tone down?
So at BBC, fortunately, we have a lot of self-regulation standards and editorial standards intrinsic to the brand itself. But I generally feel, and hearing the platforms, I think we as a creative community and as regulators, I think there needs to be some kind of a complementary relationship going forward. We don't want to be at the receiving end of something, as Gaurav said, it's such a diverse country that you'll be spending a better part of half a year just running behind some cases then. So I think we need a balanced approach. But it's not an impediment. I think all of us will find solutions around it. I think that's the only way is to have this complementary relationship with the regulatory framework as a content community.
Yeah, but I mean, my last point that I would like to make that, yes, I think, there is no impediment, but yes, I would be dishonest to say that we are not more mindful of the stories that we are trying to go out for. There is always a fear because there is one central committee, and I think that the fear is not about, like what Gaurav said, the fear is not about the PILs, or the fear is not about the regulatory bodies. The fear is about the lumpen elements that can come after you, for shows or for things that they didn't like or they didn't approve of or they had a problem with. For example, I have done shows where I have got clearances from the competent authorities, but we have been trolled by people and we have been asked to pull down things and stuff like that because they didn't like it. So now these people who are I don't know who they are. So there is a fear. I mean, it's not that it's a fear, or it's not that it's going to stop me, because at the end of the day, it is a partnership between us as content creators and the platform that's putting it out there. So the decision is always going to be a joint decision of how much we are going to push the envelope. but because it's a business at the end of the day, I think there is always a slight fear of how much envelope can we push, or how much can we really push the
Samar, sorry if
envelope.
I can just butt in. Uday, it's just
No.
not that. Calling a city by a different name gets you in trouble still. It's just not about indecent content or
Absolutely.
something. Just
No, no,
calling a
it's not
city
about,
with a different
it's not
name
about
gets you in trouble.
indecent. I'm not saying indecent. I'm just saying that the problem with it is that if there were clear-cut guidelines to what can be done and what can't be done, it makes life easy. But over here, because you're catering to such a diverse country, you don't know who's going to get offended by what. So there is always that fear while writing, and the challenges you face are when you're going to pick a biopic, or when you're going to pick up a real life incident, or you're going to pick up something and you're like, okay, now this happened in real life, who's going to get offended by it, who's going to have a problem, who's going to file a PIL, will I take someone's name and they'll have a problem. So these are challenges that we are still, I think, as content creators, we are doing it jointly with the networks, because like I said, that OTT business is not that you make a film and you just put it out there. It's a joint thing between the content creator and the platform. So it is a challenge. I would be dishonest to say it's not, but it's fun, because then you find new ways to tell stories.
Yeah, it is fun. So before we wrap up, I just want your final comments. How do you see, you want to do a bit of crystal gazing and saying, next year is going to be like this, or the next 18 months is going to be like this. We've seen how the last 18 months have been. Tell us what your view on the next 18 months on the content side is going to be, and what's the next big thing out there, and then we can wrap up.
So let me jump in. We've been talking content, so let me stick to that lens. Obviously, a lot of things are going to change in different dimensions. I think that we are a very young industry, and so a lot of the shows that we have been doing so far are somewhat more high concept, pushing the envelope. I think that we will now start to see in the next 18 months far more authentic stories in the Indian context. I think that platforms have now started to develop the appetite to not only sensationalize, but to tell great stories and authentic stories to India. And that means, not just identifying with regular Indians and their lives, but also localizing content, picking stories from different parts of the country. I think that democratization of where the story comes from has already happened in terms of our appetite to consume content, both from different parts of India, but even international. I think storytelling will keep pace in the next 18 months to try and step into that demand. We will also obviously have our quotient of sensational stories, but I would like that balance to be a little stronger. It would be heartening.
Sounds good.
But
I'll jump in here, Uday. From our perspective, I believe there would be much more demand. We are just at the cusp of industry evolving into a much more stronger behemoth. There will be much more demand from consumer perspective. They would be more discerning. The bar will keep rising. We also see a good segment, which is family viewing segment emerging for us. Just to give you some numbers, already 65% of our consumption happens on TV screens, connected TVs. So which effectively means that they're watching either with their partner or their families. Now, for that, right now, there is a dearth of content available. So more and more family content would come in, which will be entertaining, which will be engaging, may not have some of those edgy stuff we talk about. But consumers will evolve. There would be more content. Technology will evolve. We also see tier 2, 3 cities contributing a lot. Till now, it's been a tier 1 metro phenomena. So regional content going deeper into, let's say, Tamil, Telugu, Bangla, Kannada, Malayalam, and we've seen success with a lot of theatricals in the recent times on our platform for those languages. So tier 2, 3 regional content, family content, big screen viewing, more demand, and I think this industry is on a rise for next 5 years, if not more.
So I just probably have some more time, so I'm just trying to dig deeper on the regional side. Tell us more. You probably have the most experience on the regional side. Give us a little bit more flavor on how's the regional side evolving. Should you be going deeper into regional, or focus is the Hindi English side? large enough or the urban side large enough. So I just want to understand what's the play on the regional side. That seems to be a bit of smaller platforms or focused regional platforms taking a bit of a share. And what are the big horizontal platforms trying to do with it? So give us a flavor on the regional.
I think there's a huge demand there. It's unprecedented. Like I was telling you, we released some theatricals in Telugu, Malayalam, Tamil. We were pleasantly surprised by the response in terms of new users, their willingness to pay from tier 2, 3 cities. So that user is content hungry. They want entertainment. Now, who comes in first and takes away that pie is a function of who is able to produce the right content and cater to them in a way they like in the language they understand. So our platform is already in 12 languages. I mean, even you can scroll in Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, or either of these languages. So having said it, we're doubling down. We believe the real India is not only Hindi, it is across the top 10 languages in the country. We may want to focus on 3 this year and 3 next year, but there's a huge appetite for the right stories, the right content getting produced from those languages and bringing it to our users. And like I said, they are equally hungry and willing to pay.
Uday, if I can jump in here, and I'll start with the earlier question. I think series are here to stay. Crime is here to stay. I think one underserviced genre that we are now getting is comedy. I think extremely underserviced in this current scenario because it's a difficult genre to write. And I think all the platforms will know how difficult comedy is to write. But we are seeing kind of small shoots of a need for better comedy shows in the market. And coming to your last point of regional, the kind of regional demand on scripted formats that we are seeing right now, I haven't seen that in the last 1 year. In the last 6 months, the kind of demand that's come from regional players on tentpole premium dramas has been fascinating to cater to them. One is because the kind of writing, probably at some places, they don't have the kind of talent who has that experience in long format writing.
I mean, is it coming from the big platforms? Is it coming from regional specific platforms?
I think all the big platforms have their regional shoots. All of them, all these players have regional arms. Even the two international platforms in the country are looking into long formats, regional, and there is enough work happening with the international formats when it comes to regional programming. So regional scripted hasn't still taken off. I think you will see that taking off in the next 6 to 8 months. And I think that's that's going to be the next frontier right now.
I think I kind of agree with Samir because I think the regional market is the next big thing that is going to happen, and we are also getting a lot of questions and a lot of people asking us to develop stuff for the regional market. But the one thing that I feel also, again taking up from Samir, comedy, yes, and happy content is also something that a lot of networks are now kind of looking for, because there is an overdose of either crime or dark stuff, or either erotica, or real stories, or things which are not in the happy space generally. So I think that is something that also is something that would happen, and I think will happen in the next couple of years, where there will be premium drama, but premium drama more in the happy space, in the space where you can at least like have family viewing, is like what Manish and Gaurav said, that you need that family viewing. So I would not want to call it a TV plus, but it would be plus from what already television has done, because television has also told so many stories that it becomes even more difficult to find happy stories and stuff. So that's also a shift that we would see. I think I agree with Manish that there is a great demand that's now being coming in also for tier 2 and tier 3 cities, where there are more Indian stories, there are more stories which are more rooted, more grounded, more from smaller cities and things like that. So I mean, I think Samir would agree, and I would say that it's
so my question, Samar, I wanted to take the point from where you were on the regional thing and extend the conversation on saying who will be able to make for regional. Bollywood and Bombay has never been able to do much for regional. Is it going to come from other markets, or is it going to be Bombay?
I think collabs is the way forward.
Yeah,
Regional
collaboration is the way
markets,
forward for that. Yeah.
yeah, regional markets have exceptional talent. It's just that the hygiene of long format that the Hindi ecosystem has put together, probably that discipline needs to come there, because it's still a very individual driven market right now in the regional markets. I think if we can get the discipline of the big companies down into the regional markets, you'll see things change overnight.
If I can come in here, Uday, we've just forayed into the regional markets. We've just started Tamil, Telugu, and we'll soon start Bangla. Uh, you know, uh, the industry per se is very young. We've just been producing long form shows for about 3 odd years. They'll probably a yard or two behind, but I don't think it will take very long for them to catch up. What I see is that there is exceptional talent in these parts of the country. And what we need is a little more patience. And I was sort of in a little, tour around the country, and I was in Calcutta last week, setting up our Bangla Originals piece. And there is an established regional player there, just like there are a couple down south. But the fact is, there is much more scope for all of us. I think it's like, how do we grow the pie, and how do we support these exceptional talents across the country and not just focus on Bombay? I think that's going to be very, very challenging for all of us as platforms, as producers. And I think the next big thing possibly will come from Malayalam or Tamil or Bangla, for that matter. If I look at the kind of films which have hit the OTT space over the last couple of months, you have a Joji, you have a Malik, you have a Malik, you have a Great Indian Kitchen, you have a Val, which we just sort of put out last 2 weeks back, which has been doing phenomenal numbers and viewership in Tamil Nadu. I feel that that's where the real authentic Indian stories are going to come from. The one thing that we are very clear about is that this is a platform which allows you to tell the stories of real India. This is a medium where the stories can be told authentically and as honestly as you can. Let's try being honest to the story and tell them as well as we can, and find those makers who may or may not be within the orbit of the world that we sort of inhabit, and we need to seek out and help them also find these platforms for them.
Okay, one quick question I wanted to ask everybody. We're all greenlighting a lot of content. Lots of stuff is being greenlit, and I don't think any one of us has seen the space at which we are greenlighting now. Tell me 2 things each one of you notes down or looks at before you greenlight anything that goes up for production. Gaurav, you want to start off?
Sure. I typically look at character arcs. I like well-defined character arcs so I know the writer knows the journey of the individual he's writing for. To me, that's very important, because if he doesn't identify with them, then he's not going to be able to tell the story. And then I look for the primary spine of the story. In terms of, there's a lot of people that can bring texture to stories, but don't understand what is the primary spine of the story. And these are 2 things for me. Beyond that, I obviously engage with the writer to understand their craft and whether they can go beyond. But if they don't understand these 2 things, then I struggle to, because I find a lot more surround than the thread of the story. So those are my pet peeves, I guess.
Manish?
Yep. I think we look for pretty much real and relatable stories, which have a unique way of storytelling. The storytelling is a function of the writer, and real and relatable is where they originate from. And those are the 2 or 3 filters which we kind of use to evaluate which one to go with or
not.
Yeah, I think pretty much the same. We look for a real authentic story, and we also look for that story, and the maker is that maker passionate about the story that he wants to tell or she wants to tell. I think that sort of rubs on to executives like us. I feel that if you are extremely honest and passionate about the story you want to tell, the chances are you would be able to tell that story the way you want to tell the story. The other thing that I'm very particular about is that, it's very important to give the story a context. I feel that a story doesn't just arise out of an ennui, right? It sort of arises out of a certain time, both spatially and temporally. They need to be connecting. I think those are very, very important because, this is an audience which is deeply curious. It's deeply inquisitive. I think that, your story needs to arouse that curiosity in you so that you can go back and say, oh, this happened. I don't know enough about it. I probably heard a little bit about it. Let me go back and Google about it, right? I think that's the success. And I feel that's very, very important because, you want your audience to believe that, I knew about something which was happening around that time, but I didn't know enough. Did that add to my life? I think that's important. I think that's something like a yardstick that I choose because I feel that allows a certain amount of involvement as an audience with the story. How much are you a role player in the story? That's how I view stories.
Very nicely put, Shagata.
Before we end, Uday, just say that Gaurav, Manish, and Swagata, you'll have new pitches ticking those boxes in your mails by Monday morning. I promise you that. So both
I was you had a pen in your head. I knew you were noting that thing down.
If you notice, both
He's
Samir and I
nailed it
were,
by now,
if you notice, both Samir and I were busy taking notes at that time, and we're going to go back to the teams and say these are the boxes you need to tick and send those mails out.
I wish you do that easy. Someone, what do you do when you shortlist something to take to the OTT platform?
I think whatever Shogata, Gaurav, and Manish have said, I think Samir and I would also agree. We look for the same things, because we are looking at, like I said, we're looking at a relatable story. We're looking at a story that can arouse your interest to say, hey, I really want to watch this. And I think the OTT world, the one very, very important thing that's taught us is that the characters really need to stand out. Because if the characters don't stand out, then, you will have a problem of following a plot for 8 episodes. The characters in any show that's been a hit across any platform, you do remember the plot, but you do remember the character very clearly. You do remember the, character that pulled the story through. So whether it's Arya, whether it's Asur, whether it is, Kodem on Z5 or an illegal Asur, the characters remain with you. So I think the characters are most important, and how engaging can it be? And now when we pitch it to the platform, the one thing that they all ask us and the one thing we all look for is there a season 2 for it, and what's season 2? So you have to go with that, season 2.
Never ask.
So yeah, so
I think if I have to add to that, Uday, probably the only thing I'll add to what everyone said is there some freshness in the story? Because obviously there's a lot of content right now. The content needs to be relatable. There's a lot of realism going on right now in the industry. But along with that, is there enough freshness in that content, and how we are telling that same story? I think that's what's really important for all the players here.
Shagata, you were saying something.
No, I was just saying that I never asked for a season 2 arc. I say, can you tell the best story in the best possible way? Whether it is a 3 season or a 1 season, it doesn't matter.
So there goes your tick. One tick can go. Okay, so one quick one. Now, some of these platforms are also going international. So, I know Manish and team are, and Archana's group are going international. I know Sony Live is looking international, very aggressive way. Do you say something different when you go international, or is it the same storyline?
I think stories are similar. I'll come in here with this. Stories are same. The audience is similar. It's just that how you market it to this audience. So let's say when we went to US, we kind of brought in then stories rooted from South Asia because we wanted to cater to Indians and the entire South Asian audience which consume Indian content. But I think stories are same. Indians are same, and we like the similar stories across the world.
Sounds good. So I'm going to wrap up on this note. Thank you very much for this engaging conversation. It's always nice to talk to all of you with so much of experience and so much of action in this market. Thank you very much for keeping us engaged and entertained. We'll look forward to every single show that you guys put out. So thank you again.